Thank you. So we'll move to question time. Senator Daniel.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. How many temporary exclusion orders in total have been issued over the life of the Albanese government?
Thank you, Senator Daniel. Minister Wong.
Thank you for the question. Obviously, those are matters within the Home Affairs portfolio, and I'm sure could be responded to by the Home Affairs Minister. But what I would say is that this government works to the full extent of the law available to us by the legislation passed by you, which is obviously limited in parts by the Constitution. Well, Senator, you know, I'll take that interjection because this is the latest issue that the opposition want to run on. They want the Parliament to change after having passed laws which they themselves know have to be constrained because of constitutional limits. They're now demanding as a stunt a law be passed which they never sought in government. I think we understand. No, I think we understand that they are playing politics with national security, and we do not.
Minister Wong.
read Dennis Shanahan's column, you know.
Minister Wong, did you finish your contribution? Senator Duniam, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. No answer to that. Can the minister? What assurances can the minister provide to the Australian public about whether Kirsty Ross-Emile has been issued a temporary exclusion order? According to media reports, she's openly declared that she wants to, quote, make bombs and is among the cohort of 34 Australian citizens seeking to return from Syria. Or if she hasn't been issued a TEO, why not? In the view of obvious seriousness and the dangers of such a mindset and the many associated security risks and implications flowing from it.
Your time has expired. Minister Wong.
Take advice from security agencies. Not from where we are. We take advice from security agencies in relation to any individual, and Minister Burke has made clear that he will act in accordance with the full extent of the law when it comes to temporary exclusion orders, which was legislation passed when you were in government and supported by the opposition. The then opposition.
Senator Duniam, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. Does the minister concede that the sole person among the group of 34 who's been issued a temporary exclusion order should not have been given a passport to Australia first? Doesn't that defy the most basic purpose of the temporary exclusion legislation of 2019, which was to prevent a person from obtaining an Australian passport in circumstances exactly like these?
Thank you, Senator Duniam. Minister Wong.
I have responded to this yesterday. Any Australian, I will say it again, and I'd remind any Australian can apply for, and if they meet eligibility requirements, be issued an Australian passport. Full stop. Full stop. A passport can only be refused or cancelled on security grounds if a competent authority, that is a security agency such as ASIO, requests it. As I've said repeatedly, no such request was made. No such request was made. And I would just remind Senator Duniam what he himself said in the really quite disastrous press conference that he and his new boss gave on these matters, where he himself said, and I quote, "This is a terribly complex situation," and, quote, "anyone who suggests that it's straightforward is lying," end quote.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Darmanin.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister for Foreign Affairs, Senator Wong. The current conflict in the Middle East is making an already unstable region even more unstable and unpredictable. Over the last 24 hours, Iran has expanded its attacks across the region, with missile and drone attacks reported against multiple countries. What is the Albanese Labor government's assessment of the current state of conflict in the Middle East, and what are the risks of further escalation?
Thank you, Senator Darmanin. Minister Wong.
Thank you, Senator Darmanin, for the question. I know you and so many members of this place and the other place do have many constituents and relatives of constituents who are very concerned about what is happening and what is the situation, particularly in terms of the travellers who have not been able to leave UAE and other ports. This is a perilous and unpredictable time in the Middle East, and over the past 24 hours the conflict in the region has escalated and expanded. On a single day, the 2nd of March, Iran fired missiles or drones at 9 countries in the region. 9 countries in the region. The Deputy Prime Minister has confirmed that this included Al Minhad facility, which is used by Australian troops. We can confirm that all ADF personnel and embassies and deployed throughout the region are safe and accounted for. Iran has launched attacks on Bahrain, Iraq, Israel, Jordan, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia and the UAE, including a drone attack as far as a UK military base in Cyprus in the eastern Mediterranean. We condemn these reckless attacks by Iran, including against civilians and civilian infrastructure. The regime is also threatening to attack vessels through the Strait of Hormuz, jeopardising global oil supplies and shipments. We call on Iran to cease these actions. The Albanese government has made clear that it supports actions to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon and to prevent Iran from continuing to threaten international peace and security. The Iranian regime has shown in recent days why it remains a threat to peace and stability in the region, and its violence risks further destabilising an already volatile region. We do not want to see further regional escalation. We urge the protection of civilian life. We call for adherence to international humanitarian law, and we stand with the brave people of Iran.
Minister. Senator Darmanin, first supplementary.
Thank you, Minister. The conflict in the Middle East has resulted in the closure of airspace throughout most of the region. Australians, like many travellers around the world, are experiencing flight delays and cancellations. What is the situation for Australians in the region?
Thank you, Senator. Minister Wong.
Thank you, Senator, and thank you, President. Typically around 11,000 Australians a day travel through the region, 11,000 every day, the majority through the United Arab Emirates. And the situation is unprecedented because in this crisis it is the hubs that we would usually rely on in a crisis that are in crisis rather than being the solution. The number of affected Australians dwarfs any consular operation the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade has ever conducted. This morning I spoke with the UAE Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister to express our solidarity. I thanked him for supporting Australians impacted by travel disruptions, including the UAE's provision of accommodation and meals for Australians. UAE and airlines are working hard to put flights on for travellers when safe to do so. We will continue to work with airlines in the region to support Australians.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Darmanin, second supplementary.
Thank you. It is a relief to hear that some flights have been able to depart, but, Minister, as has been said, most of the airspace remains closed. And the travel advice for most of the region is currently do not travel. What is the Albanese Labor government doing to support Australians in the region?
Thank you, Senator. Minister Wong.
Thank you. I am advised that as you said, Senator, that a small number of commercial flights to other destinations were able to depart overnight. However, the unfortunate reality is that an immediate resolution to this situation is unlikely. Many Australians are also having issues with travel insurance claims and exclusions in their policies for conflict situations. Australians are looking to their insurance providers for certainty in uncertain times, and I'm pleased that the Assistant Treasurer has been working closely with insurance providers through this crisis, and we welcome the Insurance Council of Australia today declaring the conflict in the Middle East a significant event. The government will continue to press Australia's insurers to do the right thing by Australians facing disruption. Our priority, as I have said, is keeping Australians safe. We have activated the Crisis Centre, opened a registration portal for Australians in Israel, Iran, the UAE and Qatar, and we urge Australians to follow Smart Traveller for the latest advice.
Senator Patterson.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister for Foreign Affairs, Senator Wong. Minister, at Senate estimates hearings on the 12th of February, during an exchange on the subject of so-called ISIS brides, you said, and I quote, "Australian citizens have various entitlements which are not discretionary under law and no government is able to make them discretionary." End quote. Is it true that as Foreign Minister you have no discretion under current law to refuse to issue a passport under any circumstances?
Thank you, Senator Patterson. Minister Wong.
I have made clear already in this place it is possible for the Foreign Minister to refuse or cancel a passport on security grounds.
She said that.
This will be the 5th time, if a competent authority requests it. ASIO.
You are not a competent authority.
Senator Wong.
Newsflash.
What I have said
Newsflash.
is that ASIO and other competent authorities have not made such a request.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Patterson, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. Minister, Section 9 of the Australian Passports Act states that a minister may issue emergency documents. Furthermore, the entitlement to a passport outlined in Section 7 is qualified in Section 8, which requires, quote, the minister to be satisfied of a person's citizenship and identity. Can the minister confirm if the passports or travel documents issued to the 34 so-called ISIS brides and their families were authorised under Section 9?
Thank you, Senator Patterson. Minister, sorry.
Thank you. It remains a legal entitlement for Australian citizens to be issued an Australian passport if they meet eligibility requirements. So that is the position. In relation to, I'm not in a position, as you know, I was in a position, as you know, Senator, I'm not in a position, you may have asked questions about these set estimates, and nor was the department, to answer specific questions about specific individuals, and I think the department went through why that is the case.
Order.
But what I would say is that—
Senator Ruston, come to order. Minister Wong, do you wish to continue?
Does Senator Ruston want me to respond, or would she like to? I know that she hasn't got much.
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has now expired. Senator Patterson, second supplementary.
President, Minister, Section 14 of the Passport Act states, and I quote, if a competent authority suspects on reasonable grounds that if an Australian travel document were issued to a person, the person would be likely to engage in conduct that might prejudice the security of Australia or a foreign country, the person should be refused an Australian travel document in order to prevent the person from engaging in that conduct. In your 4 years as Foreign Minister, how many passports have you refused or cancelled under Section 14?
Thank you, Senator Patterson. Minister Wong.
That is the section that I have been referencing now in numerous questions, and no such request was made in relation to the group that you are referencing. In relation to other matters, I act as Foreign Minister under that section on the basis of any advice provided by a competent authority, which in general is ASIO and AFP. Senator, I am not in a position— you should not ask me.
Minister Wong, please resume your seat. Senator Patterson.
On direct relevance, President, I've asked the minister how many passports were refused or cancelled under the section of the Act.
The minister is being relevant to your question, Senator Patterson. Minister Wong.
I mean, the extent to which the irresponsible, those opposite are irresponsible, that you would actually ask questions about the advice of security agencies. I act on the advice of security agencies. I act on the advice of security agencies, and if you want— you have been on PJSIS, you have been on the committee, Senator. If you want a confidential briefing on classified matters, I will provide it. Did you hear what I said? If you want a confidential briefing on classified matters, I will provide it.
Has expired. Order. Order. That was extremely loud and disrespectful, and some of the people on my left on the front bench were louder than the minister. This is not a football match, it's the Senate. Senator Faruqi.
Thank you. My question is to Minister Wong. Minister, Muslims and migrants of colour are under attack across the country. Racism is rising, women attacked on the streets, white supremacists plotting violence on mosques. In yesterday's censure of Senator Hanson, you stated, I want every Australian child to know and to believe that they belong here. Yet your government refuses to take action to address the hate and racism that challenges their belonging. In your speech and motion, the words racism and Islamophobia were not even mentioned. The National Anti-Racism Framework, a plan to tackle systemic racism, that exists in this country has been gathering dust on government shelves for more than 450 days now. Minister, if you seriously care about eliminating racism, why have you not even responded to the National Anti-Racism Framework?
Thank you, Senator Faruqi. Minister Wong.
Thank you, Senator. There are not many people in this chamber who have spent much of their lives standing up against hatred and racism. And one of the things that I have believed, which clearly you do not, is that we do best if we do that together. And if we stand in solidarity together, even if we don't agree with each other on many things, that we could stand in solidarity with each other. I remember, as a young Asian Australian, you don't want my, this is not legitimate.
Wong, please resume your seat. Just a moment, Senator Faruqi. I haven't called you. I'm just waiting for some order in the chamber. Senator Faruqi.
I have a point of order on relevance, President. My question was specifically about the National Anti-Racism Framework.
Yes, and Senator, order. To those on my right, I'm running the Senate. Senator Faruqi, you also had quite a significant and broad-ranging introduction to your question, and the minister's being precisely relevant. Thank you.
I remember as a young Asian Australian, and I think I speak for many of my generation, how comforted we were by the bipartisan support for a non-discriminatory immigration system, including by members of the Liberal Party, and also how confident we were by bipartisan condemnation by many of Senator Hanson when she was in her first iteration. And I want to acknowledge Senators Scarr and McLaughlin for their principled stance yesterday, because it speaks to a history of bipartisan support for respect and equality that we have in this country. So, Senator, what I would say to you is we may not agree on everything, but surely together people can stand together against racism, which is what this Senate sought to do yesterday. And it saddens me that instead you chose to engage as much in an attack on me personally as on Senator Hanson.
Senator Wong. Senator Ormond-Payne. Oh, sorry, I thought you were standing.
I was standing. It was a point of order on impugning the motivations of a senator.
Senator Ormond-Payne, that is not a point of order. Minister Wong, did you wish to continue?
Thank you. I think the motivations which were impugned in the question were mine. And what I would say is all my life, and including yesterday and all the time in public life that I've had, I will stand against racism. On the anti-racism framework, that is a matter for the Attorney-General, and I will refer her.
Thank you, Senator Wong. Please resume your seat. Senator Faruqi, I'm not sure if that comment was directed to Senator Wong. If it was, I will ask you to withdraw it.
Directed to the Labor government.
Senator Faruqi, in the interests of the chamber, I would ask that you withdraw. I haven't finished speaking, Senator Waters, so I would like respect from you until I finish speaking. Then I will come to you, so please resume your seat. Senator Faruqi, in the interests of the harmony that I am trying to establish in this chamber, I would ask you again, in the interests of the chamber, to withdraw that statement. Senator Waters.
On the topic of withdrawals, Senator Sterle has been a frequent nasty contributor, and his most latest contribution against Senator Faruqi must be immediately withdrawn.
Well,
and he's just repeated it as well.
Thank you. Senator Sterle, Senator, I have three senators. Order. Just a moment, Senator Ayres. I'm going to restore order first, and then thank you. Senator Sterle, silence. Senator Waters, you've made a point of order. I'm going to address it, but I will not address it until the chamber is quiet. Senator Sterle.
It would be my pleasure to withdraw for you, President.
Thank you. Senator Ayres.
So, a point of order. I would seek that Senator Faruqi withdraw what she just said. It was in no way prior to what she said you. Like, there's in no way possible to make an argument that that was a reflection upon the government. It was a snide, unserious, personal attack, and it ought to be withdrawn.
Thank you, Senator Ayres. Senator Faruqi.
President, I withdraw, but this chamber has massive double standards. When a Labour member stands up and calls me a cretin, and you say you are standing up for racism, he calls me a...
Senator Faruqi, resume your seat. Right, when the chamber is quiet, Senator Faruqi, I asked you to withdraw. You're well aware of the standards that I seek, and then when I ask senators to withdraw, they withdraw without comment. So I'm asking you to withdraw. Senator Faruqi, you are not in a debate with me. Senator Allman-Payne, resume your seat. Resume your seat. I'm not going to come to you at the moment. Senator Faruqi, I would ask you to simply withdraw.
Withdrawn, Chair.
Thank you, Senator Faruqi. Senator McKim.
Yes, I have a point of order, President. You have asked, and Senator Sterle has complied, to withdraw the first insult that he threw at Senator Faruqi, and he's done that. I now ask you to request that he withdraw the second insult. I won't repeat it, but it started with an F, and I ask that you require him to withdraw the subsequent insult as well.
Thank you, Senator McKim. You are also well aware of my standard that I never allow senators to repeat an offence. I did not hear any of the offences. Senator Allman-Payne, I am speaking. Sit down, please. I think, Senator Sterle, if you made a second...
I certainly did use the word beginning with F, but it wasn't the F word, but I will withdraw that, gratefully.
Thank you. Now, I'm not quite sure where we're up to, so I'll seek the... Senator Faruqi, I believe it's your first supplementary.
On 21st March, we will mark the International Day of the Elimination of Racial Discrimination in a climate in which racially marginalised communities are increasingly fearful for their safety because Labour and Liberals continue on their dog whistling and scapegoating. This date offers a perfect opportunity for Labour to put their money where their mouth is and fund the National Anti-Racism Framework in the upcoming budget. Minister, will you announce funding for the NAF before IDIRD this year?
Thank you, Senator Faruqi. Minister Wong.
Budget decisions will be made in the budget context, but this government stands against racism in all its forms.
Senator Faruqi, second supplementary.
Last week, the Prime Minister was very quick and so wrong to call Grace Tame difficult, a sexist and patronising label for someone who has more courage than the whole Labour cabinet put together. But he can't bring himself to call One Nation the racist, Islamophobic and hateful party that they actually are. Will the Prime Minister and the Labour Party ever muster up the courage to call them out for what they are, racists?
Thank you, Senator Faruqi. Minister Wong.
I think I outlined very clearly our views about Ms Hanson and what she stands for.
Senator Grogan.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister for Women, Senator Gallagher. Today, the Workplace Gender Equity Agency released the annual employer gender pay gap data, providing greater transparency about pay outcomes for women and men across Australian workplaces. This data is available because of reporting requirements introduced underneath the Albanese Labor government. It shows progress, but there is more work to do. Can the minister outline what this latest data reveals about the state of gender pay equality in Australia and how it reflects the government's broader agenda to get more women into secure, well-paying jobs?
Thank you, Senator Grogan. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, President. I thank Senator Grogan for the question and all the work that she has done throughout her career about advocating for gender equality across all industries. And it was a pleasure to stand with Mary Woolridge, the head of the Workplace Gender Equality Agency, today to release the annual employer gender pay gaps data. And this report, which is in the third year that we have been providing this information, shows continued progress to reduce the gender pay gap. In fact, the average total remuneration gender pay gap has reduced from 12.1% last year to 11.2%, and there was good progress in terms of reducing the number of employers who are conducting gender pay gap analysis, the number of those who did a comprehensive analysis, the number of those employers who found the cause of the gap in that analysis, and the numbers who took action to review performance structures to ensure there was no bias. And indeed, we see more employers falling into the target range of pay, including, and in this year we reported the Commonwealth public sector data for the first time alongside the private sector data. So we now have half of employers now have an average total remuneration gender pay gap smaller than 11.2%, which is a reduction of 0.9. There are more women in high-paid roles, but women are still more likely to be concentrated in the lowest-paid jobs. And as I said earlier, more employers are conducting the analysis that leads to further change. But we know that there is more to do. We thank WGEA for the work they've done in working with employers to deliver this information. And in particular, I'd like to thank Mary Woolridge, who's been the head of the Workplace Gender Equality Agency since 2021, and this will be her last reporting season.
The time for answering has expired. Senator Grogan, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. I'd like to just thank Senator Gallagher for the amazing work that she's done to get this progress. While we do see recent data showing women's average earnings have increased significantly since this government came to office, the latest figures show women still earn around 88 cents for every dollar earned by men. Can the minister outline how the Albanese Labor government remains committed to helping women get ahead at work and take home more pay?
Thank you, Senator Grogan. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, President. I thank Senator Grogan for that. And just to finish on acknowledging the contribution of Ms Mary Woolridge, who has led WGEA with a high level of professionalism and has led to significant reforms, including respect at work, the transparency data and the world-leading target-setting approach that she has implemented. And I wish her all the best. In terms of the work that that the government remains committed to is helping women get ahead at work and take home more pay, as Senator Grogan outlined. We have been very clear that this has been a core priority for us in terms of our government policy, but also our economic approach. And we know now that the gender pay gap is the lowest on record. We know that women are earning more and, on average, taking home $291.60 more a week than they were when we came to government. We've got women's workforce participation trending up at 62% in December, with over 640,000 new jobs for women since May.
Expired. Senator Grogan, second supplementary.
Thank you. That's great news. The progress on gender equality requires sustained effort and a continued focus on policies that expand choice and opportunity for women in the workforce. Can the minister outline how greater flexibility and secure work empower women with more choice, and what barriers still stand in the way of achieving these outcomes for Australian women?
Thank you, Senator Grogan. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you. Well, there are the challenges that remain, certainly challenges in the approach that happens with non-base remuneration, so those performance bonuses or other arrangements outside of pay. Base pay remains a challenge. But we also know that flexible work is a key issue for women, and where that is not addressed, when workplaces genuinely don't support flexibility, including access to flexible work. And I should point out, today is the one-year anniversary of the Liberals announcing their scrapping of working from home, which went down. It's been 12 months since that big policy announcement that went down like a lead balloon. And why did it go down like a lead balloon? Because women who are already juggling everything else were told by the Liberal Party that you're a bludger. You're a bludger. If you're not in the office, you're a bludger. And that's what they heard. And that's what they don't get about women's policy, is we need flexibility when it comes to work.
The time for answering has expired. Senator Lambie. Order across the chamber. It is Senator Lambie's opportunity to put her question.
Thank you, Madam President. My question is for the Minister for Science and Industry. An AI advisory body was promised by former Industry Minister Ed Husic in 2024 after he appointed an interim expert panel to start work to ensure the technology was safe. In 2025, Minister Husic said that mandatory guardrails will be prioritised by the second term of the Albanese government. But on the 24th of February, the government scrapped the permanent AI advisory body after spending 15 months and $200,000 working to identify experts to sit on it. Minister, you then announced a replacement AI Safety Institute that will be established in early 2026. Can the Minister please explain how an institute with no powers other than to offer advice can protect Australians from the worst of AI?
Thank you, Senator Lambie. Minister Ayres.
Thank you, Senator Lambie, for that question. And as you'll be aware, the Albanese government announced the National Plan for Artificial Intelligence some months ago, and that did include establishing an AI Safety Institute funded just under $30 million for that, to play that role. That work occurs against the backdrop of the efforts put in the previous term, including by Minister Husic, into establishing the government's approach to this vital technology, which comes with enormous opportunity and with some risk. The National Plan for Artificial Intelligence is about making sure that Australia captures the opportunities of this technology, that we spread the benefits, so they're not just in the central business districts of our big cities, but they're spread to small businesses, to the tech sector, to regional communities, to make sure that schools, everybody gets access to the benefits of this technology, and importantly, that we keep Australians safe. The AI Safety Institute's role will be to do the technical evaluation work, particularly testing of new frontier models, to make sure that we understand what the platforms are that are accessible for Australians. Secondly, to do the work in terms of safety and alignment with the interest of Australians, to perform a regulatory support role so that we make sure as a government, working with colleagues like Minister Gallagher and others across the government, to ensure that our regulators, our agencies, our departments have the capability that they require and the regulations they need to make sure.
The time for answering has expired. Senator Lambie, first supplementary.
Thank you. South Korea, Denmark and European Union are all bringing forward new AI laws, not relying, like our government, on existing laws to regulate AI and protect its citizens. Why does the government think Australians can be protected by laws that were pre-written before AI even existed or invented? So when we will actually get new laws to protect our citizens from the worst aspects, once again from AI? I just don't understand how you can possibly be using old laws when you haven't brought new ones in.
Thank you, Senator Lambie. Minister Ayres.
Thank you, President, and thanks, Senator Lambie, for that second question. As I was about to finish the previous answer, you've touched on exactly where I was to go next, which is part of the function of that Safety Institute is to cooperate with partners overseas, including the jurisdictions that you referred to, who all have AI Safety Institutes themselves, as a key piece of their architecture. There are different approaches being taken in different economies and jurisdictions around the world. The AI Safety Institute, in our judgment, this government's judgment, is an important adjunct to having our capability as a government to make sure that we're capturing the opportunities and spreading the benefits, but dealing with those safety issues adequately and effectively. We don't believe that an additional piece of legislation, and I might have to come to this in your second supplementary.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Lambie, second supplementary.
Thank you. The government uses government AI to build, test and deploy customised AI solutions, including OpenAI's GP models and Anthropic's Claude and Microsoft's Copilot under trial. Members of the general public and organisations now get an email telling them that their submission will be first assessed by AI. Can you tell me exactly what AI models are being used for this, and can you assure Australians that their data isn't being shared with the big techs globally?
Thank you, Senator Lambie. Minister Ayres.
Thank you. If I can just finish that first point, that is, we have a regulatory framework in Australia. Our job is to strengthen it and to make sure that it is fit for purpose, and that may engage future regulatory change in some areas to make sure that Australian laws, whether it's dealing with financial harms or dealing with protecting young Australians or whatever it is, that our legal framework is up to scratch and modern and fit for purpose. On that question of which platforms are being used in the context that you've referred to, I'm not in a position to answer. I don't know the answer to that question. I'll be happily come back to you about that in more detail.
Senator Lambie.
It's a point of order. I just wanted to know how you can assure Australians that their data isn't being shared with big tech globally. That's the assurance we want to hear today. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Lambie. Did you have anything further to add, Minister Ayres?
I don't believe so. I mean, data protection is a core principle of the government's operation here.
Senator David Pocock.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Foreign Minister. Minister, did Israeli President Isaac Herzog visit ASIO headquarters during the course of his recent trip to Australia?
Thank you, Senator Pocock. Minister Wong.
Thank you, President, and thank you to Senator Pocock. I believe the program was made public. Obviously, in relation to that particular entity, we are cautious about what is said, but I can provide some further information on notice.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Pocock, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. Minister, I would expect that you would probably know this detail. I'm just wondering if you can confirm that President Herzog did not visit ASIO headquarters or any other intelligence or operational facilities here in Australia in the course of his recent visit.
Thank you, Senator Pocock. Minister Wong.
Thank you, Senator. If I can provide information, I will. You ask about one of Australia's security agencies. Now, obviously, they've had been extensively involved in the investigation and circumstances of the Bondi attack. If I am able to provide you with further information, Senator, I will.
Senator Pocock, second supplementary.
So, Minister, can I take that you are unaware of President Herzog visiting ASIO or any of our security agencies? I appreciate that you'll take it on notice, but I just want to confirm that you're unaware of that.
Thank you, Senator Pocock. Minister Wong.
Senator, what you can take is that I will do what I can on notice to provide you with the information that I'm able to.
Order. Senator Pocock.
Sorry, President. Just a point of order on relevance. I've tried to ask this very respectfully with no preamble, no long-winded intro, and that was not the question that I asked.
The minister's yes, Minister Wong.
Senator Pocock, I'm also trying to be courteous. I'm not able to answer your question, so please. I think Senator Pocock doesn't need your assistance, Senator Whish-Wilson. I'm also seeking to be courteous. I'm not in a position where I can answer your question. Obviously, questions about that agency are often very sensitive. I will clarify what I am able to outline to you, and I will come back to you. So I'm seeking to be courteous also in my response.
Senator Pocock.
Sorry, just Minister Wong, I'm not trying to be funny here, but just
Senator, why
a point of order
on
relevance. My question was whether you know and you can't say, or you.
Senator Pocock, I've listened very carefully to your questions and the minister's answers, and she is being directly relevant to the question. And in the first in your first question, the minister's agreed to take on notice and to see what she can provide. So she has been relevant for all of your questions. I'm going to move on. Senator Roberts.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Climate Change and Energy, Senator Ayres. Yesterday, I asked you to confirm Australia was entering a period of oil supply disruption with a mere 26 days of petrol in the system. Under International Energy Agency guidance, the minimum fuel reserve is 90 days. Yet you responded that Australia has 150% of our minimum requirement. The Albanese government last year quietly chose to ignore the International Energy Agency and decided to introduce instead your own minimum stockholding obligations, which you set at a mere 24 days. Problem solved. Aside from 26 not being 150% of 24, Minister, how can you justify ignoring International Energy Agency best practice and introduce a patently absurd and dangerous minimum stockholding obligation of only 24 days of petrol supply? Why are you entrenching energy insecurity and volatility for which Australians will pay?
Thank you, Senator Roberts. Minister Ayres.
Well, if I can start at the end of that question and then I'll try and deal with some of the substance of it. Energy insecurity in Australia is a consequence of what happened over the Morrison-Abbott-Turnbull catastrophe, where 4 out of our 6 oil refineries closed. 4 out of the 6. Now, despite what Mr Hastie says when he turns to for work, despite what Mr Hastie says, these things are not straightforward to rebuild. 4 out of 6 closed. So if you want to ask questions about energy insecurity, ask them how it is that they sat on their hands for so long.
Minister Ayres. Senator Roberts.
Point of order. I'm not asking the opposition. I'm asking the minister. And I want an answer.
I'll wait until there's silence. I'm waiting for silence. I will direct the minister to your question, Senator Roberts. Minister Ayres.
And while I'm on the subject of the opposition and the current fuel security arrangements, we have larger reserves on hand than there has been at any time over the last 15 years. Today,
Senator
as a result of the action that this government.
Minister Wong. Oh. Please continue, Senator.
As a result of the action, not words, the action that this government has taken. Better than 15 years. Now, the last government, when Mr Taylor was in charge of energy, it was unclear. Mr Morrison was also the minister, I think, at the same time, secretly. His announcement, Mr Taylor, the worst energy minister in Australian history, who did more to debauch and pull down our energy policy framework, his proposition was that Australia's fuel reserves should be contained in Texas.
Thank you, Minister Ayres. The time for answering has expired. Senator Roberts, first supplementary.
Thank you. Thank you, Minister. In the next few weeks, Brisbane's Lytton fuel refinery is scheduled to close for 10 days' maintenance. Lytton produces the majority of Australia's domestic petrol, diesel and industrial gas production. 10 days' production taken out of the system at a time of supply shortage is a recipe for disaster. Why didn't the Albanese government secure additional supply prior to Lytton closing to ensure fuel security in Australia?
Thank you, Senator Roberts. Minister Ayres.
I'll just say in relation to the previous question, Texas, the United States, not Texas, Queensland, right? That's where supposedly this character had our fuel. Now you say that there is a 10-day. I couldn't be any more relevant.
Minister Ayres. Senator Roberts.
Point of order. I'm not asking about Texas. I'm asking about Lytton and securing additional fuel supplies to protect this country.
Thank you, Senator Roberts. I was about to direct the minister to your question, but he went to the question himself. Minister Ayres.
I did, President. I did. And of course, these kind of maintenance shutdowns occur from time to time. If there's anything in relation to this particular shutdown that I can provide to you, I will. But I just say there's not 6 oil refineries. There's not 6. 4 closed. And 4 closed when Senator Canavan, who's very noisy about these issues in opposition, but was as quiet as a mouse, when the other side was in government, was never when I think I've run out of time.
Thank you, Minister. Order. Order across the chamber. Order. Senator Canavan and Senator Watt. Order. Order. Senator Roberts, second supplementary.
Thank you. Of the 3,000 oil tankers that service Australia, we own just 4, with a total capacity of approximately 1.8 million barrels every delivery cycle, which takes 30 days from Singapore and 40 days from South Korea, our major supply point. 1.8 million barrels is enough to last Australia 6 days. Minister, what's your plan here? Beg other countries for some of their oil? Force Australians to pay $3 a litre at the pumps? Or use a petrol shortage to introduce more Labor communism control?
Thank you, Senator Roberts. Minister Ayres.
I'm not sure there's an adjective big enough for that overreach in the English language, really. But if you're so critical of Mr Taylor's performance as the Energy Minister, the fact that our merchant fleet declined over that period, the fact that 4 out of our 6 oil refineries closed, the fact that 24 out of 28 coal-fired power stations announced their closure, why do you cuddle up to them so much?
Please resume your seat. Senator Roberts.
I'm not asking about his uniparty mate, Mr Taylor. I'm asking about his own policy. What's he going to do?
Senator Roberts, you've made the point of order. I will draw the minister to your question. Minister.
Well, I've answered the question. I just make the point that if you and the Nationals and the Liberals really want to get behind Mr Taylor, who was the worst energy minister in our history, did more damage than any other person to Australia's energy security, did more, along with Senator Hume, to trash the economic record of the Liberal Party in their last election, be our guest.
Senator Stewart.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister for Indigenous Australians, Senator McCarthy. Yourself in your capacity as the Minister for Indigenous Australians and the Prime Minister have both made clear in your statements that closing the gap remains a priority for the Albanese Labor government. How is the government working in partnership with First Nations communities, peak bodies and state and territory governments to make real progress on closing the gap and expand opportunities for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people?
Thank you, Senator Stewart. Minister McCarthy.
Thank you, President, and I thank the senator for her question and for her support on our work on closing the gap. The Albanese Labor government is working in partnership, President, partnership with First Nations communities, partnership with the Coalition of Peaks, state and territory governments to try to improve the outcomes for First Nations Australians. Our Closing the Gap plan demonstrates the progress we have made and still the work ahead. We promised at the last election to create 3,000 jobs in remote communities, and I am delighted that we're doubling that number to an incredible 6,000 jobs, as the Prime Minister announced. It's an investment in real jobs with proper wages, superannuation and career pathways, President, and we're tackling cost of living. Our low-cost essential subsidy scheme is already saving families at the checkout in 113 remote stores around the country. It's slashing the cost of 30 essential items so families can put more food on the table. Now we're expanding that program to all 225 remote stores right around the country. In health, President, we're upgrading critical Aboriginal community-controlled health services, and we're making sure our public hospitals better support First Nations people through a joint $450 million boost through the National Health Reform Agreement. We're delivering the first standalone national plan to end violence against Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander women and children, and backing that in, President, with an immediate $218 million injection of funds into frontline services. We are building stronger futures for First Nations Australians.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Stewart, first supplementary.
Thank you, President, and thank you, Minister, for that response. Improving mental health and suicide prevention remain critical priorities in closing the gap. Can the minister outline how the Albanese Labor government's investment in culturally safe, community-led services like 13 Yarn is supporting Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people to access crisis support?
Thank you, Senator Stewart. Minister McCarthy.
Yep, thank you, President. Thank you, Senator Stewart. Supporting the social and emotional well-being of First Nations people, President, is essential to closing the gap. And that's why the Albanese Labor government is strengthening 13 Yarn. And that's the national crisis support line designed, led and delivered by Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. 13 Yarn provides confidential, culturally safe crisis support 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it ensures people can speak to someone who understands their situation, their cultural connections, community and their lived experience. The $13.9 million investment we've announced through Closing the Gap will extend operating hours and expand services so people can access support when they need it the most.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Stewart, second supplementary.
Thank you, President, and thank you, Minister. Recent flooding across Central Australia and the Barkly has highlighted the challenges remote communities face in accessing essential services and reliable food supplies. How are the Albanese Labor government's Closing the Gap investments strengthening remote stores, improving food security during extreme weather and supply disruptions?
Thank you, Senator Stewart. Minister McCarthy.
Thank you, President. Well, we've certainly seen tremendous amounts of rain right across Central Australia and even still right through up to the north. This is all too common during the wet season in the top end, but our food resilience package is helping stores limit the impact in terms of some of our communities being cut off from access. It is working. It's why the Albanese Labor government is expanding that package to 75 additional remote stores. We're upgrading storage and refrigeration so stores can keep essentials stocked and food fresh when roads are cut off, which has been happening quite a lot recently. And all we heard, certainly from those yesterday opposite, was just negativity. And I do encourage members opposite to really see what we are trying to do here. You know, it's one of the first times that I haven't seen that bipartisan support here in the Senate, and I really urge senators to try and do that.
Has expired. Senator Sharma.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister for Foreign Affairs, Senator Wong. Minister, many Australians now stranded in the Middle East have reportedly been able to contact consular staff with emergency lines unanswered and hotlines overwhelmed. Yet your government has spent months coordinating the return of ISIS sympathisers, issuing them dozens of passports. Why can the Albanese government pave the way for the return of terrorist sympathisers but not ensure law-abiding Australians stranded overseas can get help when they need it?
Order on my right. Order on my right. Before I call the minister, I'm going to remind those on my right that I need to be able to hear the question, and Senator Sharma should be able to ask his question in silence. Minister Wong.
This is it's one of the few times I will take an interjection from Senator Shoebridge. That's the great moderate hopeful channelling Peter Dutton now. Senator, your question, you know, because you are smart enough. You know that your question is incorrect, that what you are asserting there is untrue. But I will leave aside the political untruth in relation to the Syrian cohort. What I will go to, which I hope matters, is what we are doing for Australians in the Middle East. And as I have been very clear with the Senate, the public, yes, the numbers are larger than any consular crisis that the Department of Foreign Affairs of Trade, including when you were working there, have ever dealt with. And we have 115,000 Australians in the Middle East. 11,000 Australians transit through Qatar and the United Arab Emirates every day. It is a major hub for Australians to go to and from other parts of the world, to and from Australia. And staff in consulates, in embassies and at the crisis centre are working around the clock, and we will do everything we can. What I have said is obviously we're looking at whatever arrangements we can make, bearing in mind that, given the numbers, the best way of ensuring people can get home safely and quickly is for flights to resume. But as I also have been upfront in saying, currently the situation in the Middle East is risky and unpredictable. 9 countries were hit in one day, and we know we have seen the hubs hit. And that is the reality of the situation that the government is dealing with. I feel for Australians overseas.
The time for answering has expired. Senator Sharma, first supplementary.
Thank you, and thank you, Minister. Look, I do point out that the Boxing Day 2004 tsunami, there were some 15,000 Australians unaccounted for in the hours after that. So I appreciate this is a significant consular crisis, but we have dealt with ones of a similar magnitude before. Last week, Minister, DFAT ordered the departure of dependents from Israel and facilitated the departures of dependents from Jordan, Qatar and the UAE. If the government knew the situation was deteriorating to the point of withdrawing its own personnel, why did you not publicly front up and warn the Australian public at that time?
Senator Sharma. I'll wait for silence. Minister Wong.
Senator, you know that the government has a policy around no double standards, which is why that travel advice was published on its travel advice channel, Smart Traveller, and my office made media aware on the 25th of February. And you would know that from your vast experience. I would also say I can take you through the very many the iteration of travel advice, which, as you would know, is done on advice and after consideration, that have been put out. The travel advice that we have been giving has been in line with like-mindeds. We have issued a number of warnings, including on the 15th of January and the 30th of January. The time remaining doesn't me.
Order. Senator McKenzie, I don't believe this is your question. I'll ask you to be quiet. Senator Sharma, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. Well, my question was, why did the minister not stand up last week and reiterate that travel advice from her department? Because clearly, given the significant US military build-up in the region, given we were ordering the departures of dependents and facilitating the departures of others, we saw this crisis coming. Wouldn't have acting earlier allowed us to mitigate the impact of Australians abroad, and doesn't this represent a failure of preparedness and communication that has left Australians stranded with limited options?
Thank you, Senator Sharma. Minister Wong.
It's always so disappointing that when there is a crisis for this country, the first thing that the opposition do is try to make politics out of it. Always go to politics about it. That is what they always do.
Minister Wong, Minister Wong, please resume your seat. I have worked very hard to make sure that Senator Sharma was respected and that his question was heard in silence. That same respect applies to Minister Wong's answer. Please continue, Minister Wong.
Can I say I want to make some comments?
Order. Senator Watt. I've just finished saying to the Senate that Senator Wong needs to be heard in silence, and yet the interjection started. Again, Minister Wong.
This year, before the conflict began on the 28th of February, we issued a total of 41 travel advice updates for the Middle East, including to warn that conflict could result in airspace closures, flight cancellation and other disruptions. We posted 26 times across X, Facebook and Instagram, including on 15th of January. Regional tensions in the Middle East are high and the security situation could deteriorate rapidly and without notice. This may result in airspace closures, flight cancellations and other disruptions. On the 30th of January, we also provided information that there is a risk of further escalation and closure of airspace around transit hubs in the Middle East may impact flights globally.
Senator Sheldon.
My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Employment and Workplace Relations, Senator Watt. Since the election in May 2022, a key priority of the Albanese Labor government has been delivering higher wages for workers. How important is it for the government to continue its policy of higher wages for workers to help Australians with cost of living pressures?
I'm going to wait once again until there's order on my left. Minister Watt.
Sorry, I was so enraptured by that question, President. Under the Albanese Labor government, Australians are earning more and keeping more, helping them to deal with cost of living pressures. Wages increased by 3.4% to December 2025, up from 3.3% in September.
Minister Watt, please resume your seat. Once again, order on my left, particularly those on the front bench. Minister Watt, please continue.
So, as I say, wages increased by 3.4% to December 2025, up from 3.3% in September. And that just doesn't happen by accident. It's the result of deliberate Labor policies that have actively increased wages. Of course, all of this has been opposed by the Coalition because they don't want to see everyday Australians getting ahead. And if you thought it would be any better under the new Liberal leadership team, you would be very, very wrong. As the former leader, Ms Lee, remember her? None of you seem to. She said last week the new Liberal leadership team immediately re-adopted her policies. Kind of makes you wonder what the point was, really. We've got a new Liberal leader whose solution to cost of living was long lunches for bosses, and a deputy, who hasn't been given a question yet, I notice, who wanted to ban working from home. Happy anniversary, Jane. The rap sheet is long when it comes to these characters. Let's look at the new Shadow Treasurer, Mr Wilson, who has criticised the Fair Work Commission's decision to increase the minimum wage and opposed legislation enshrining penalty rates in law. And the Liberals' secret election review, hidden by the opposition leader but now leaked to the media, admits that those who now have control of the party were the architects of their electoral defeat. The review blames policies like opposition to income tax cut. You should make that bloke leader. Oh, that's right, you have. That's right. And the denial of flexible working
Minister
arrangements.
Watt.
Happy anniversary. Oh!
Minister Watt, please resume your seat. I'm waiting for silence. Senator Henderson.
Thank you very much, Madam President. A point of order. Could you ask the minister to direct his answer through the chair? Thank you.
Good on. Senator Henderson, I am more than happy to do that. I would also request that the front bench, Senator McKenzie, just as I'm speaking, to try and get order, you interject. Perhaps there's a deal here. Senator Watt can direct his questions to the chair, and the front bench, on my left, can be quiet. Minister Watt.
Well, through you, President, we are very happy to see Senator Henderson back on the front bench. And the challenge for the Coalition now is will they heed their own review or continue to cut Australian wages?
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Order. I'm waiting for silence. I'm waiting for silence. Senator Sheldon, first supplementary.
The Albanese Labor government knows that higher wages are vitally important to ensuring the pay packets of Australian workers can keep pace with cost of living pressures. Improving working conditions can also have a material benefit in the lives of millions of workers across the country. How has the government improved conditions for Australian workers, and how important is it that these measures are maintained?
Thank you, Senator Sheldon. I'll just wait for silence again. Order. Senator Watt. Minister Watt.
Thanks, Senator Sheldon. Well, whether it's our closing loopholes legislation, voted against by the Coalition, fixing the labour hire system, voted against by the Coalition, or enhancements to flexible working arrangements, the Albanese government knows that making changes to help workers get ahead is really important to do. Unfortunately, that view is not shared by those opposite who only wish to punish workers who want more flexibility. The treasure trove of quotes from the new Shadow Treasurer. He wants to repeal the right to disconnect. He wants children to take up side hustles to help feed their families. And as has already been canvassed by Minister Gallagher, the architect of their failed work-from-home policy, Senator Hume, is now in charge of their entire industrial relations policy. Now, the Liberals' secret review was scathing in its assessment of the policy, which Senator Hume led. And how do we know that? Because I tabled the Liberal Party review of their policy. And my favourite line in that review on page 18 about the work-from-home debacle, memories vary on who approved it. It was
Watt.
Senator Hughes.
Thank you, Minister Watt. Senator Sheldon, second supplementary.
The Albanese Labor government's policies of higher wages and better conditions are also driving increased participation in the labour market. With a record number of Australians now in work, how is the government helping to keep Australians in a job?
Senator Mackenzie, it seems you want to ask this question, but the question was directed to Minister Watt. Minister Watt, please answer.
Well, no Nationals have had a question today, but maybe there's always hope. Since the government came to office in May 2022, more than 1.2 million jobs have been created. Now, of course, one of those jobs has been created a few times over. That's the Leader of the Coalition. And while we're focused on creating more jobs for Australians, the new Leader of the Opposition's sole focus is on protecting his own. Because what other reason is there for him announcing his willingness to do preferences with One Nation? For someone who wants to return to Howard-style conservatism, he won't follow John Howard's principled decision to put One Nation last. That decision is certainly not following Recommendation 16 of the Liberal Secret Election Review, which states that broadening the support base is necessary if the party is to reflect modern Australia. Now, when the authors of that review said that they need to broaden the base, I don't think they were talking about Bolt and Credlin. They were talking about a wide range of Australians, including the Australian workers who deserve every pay rise they've got under a Labor government.
Senator Wong, Minister Wong.
As much as I would like to keep listening to Senator Watt, Minister Watt, I ask that further questions be placed on notice.